Hey everyone, how's it going? So in this video, we're going to go through and sort of look at how we can repurpose and think through hopefully creating unlimited examples of content for ourselves, for our classes. Specifically, I'm going to work on, I did a video on creating a case study generator, which was not too advanced, but advanced enough that it was not truly, a little more complex than normal. But I'm going to show you ways we can think through potentially getting an easier or a quicker result to modify case studies for our classes. And really think of ways to sort of, once you think through this, you can really apply it to any case study and you can just modify it, develop it, and create as many as you want. So one of the key things we're going to do is basically start with the conversation with chat and sort of establish what a case study is. Now, I created, like I said, a previous video talking about case studies. And basically this is the conversation here, and I'm going to copy that conversation because there are key things in that conversation that really made sense. And why would I be copying this? Well, I'm going to copy my question and then responses that chat gave, because this is good information up until where I asked for a specific kind of case study. The reason why is within this type of activity I want to do, I don't want to just get a meaningless case study, one that just does enough. I want to establish what I'm looking for in a case study. And the specific area that I'm focusing on is the idea of just a challenging case study that requires critical thinking and has multiple potential answers and really challenges the student's understanding. So I'm going to copy and paste that whole conversation for ChatGPT here. And then all I'm going to say at the very end of this conversation is saying, when you have read this, say read. And chat did. The reason why is I don't want it to comment on this. This is just sort of building my data set. And I want you to get that understanding of your brain here. So when you have a conversation with ChatGPT, you have chat's model out there in the world, and it's a model you're interacting with. But that model, that conversation, that natural language processing model, doesn't know what you're doing, doesn't know your intent, your meaning, your structure, your value, whatever you're doing. It just knows you, it gives you, you give a prompt and it gives you an answer based off its understanding of that. So the more we can focus chat in our conversation, in our thought process first, the better we'll get to meaningful results quicker. So a lot of times I'll copy conversations I had and I'll say, a structural conversation for case studies, and I'll sort of have that prompted. I'll have it as a Word doc or whatever, and I'll copy and paste that, and it sort of establishes the meaning of what I'm trying to focus chat into. So that's what we have here. Basically just a whole bit of a conversation back and forth, and then obviously information there. So now I sort of have that bit of that structure, and I'm going to start to prompt chat. So my goal is I'm going to give, I want to create a new case study, and I'm going to give ChatGPT an example, saying here's an example of a case study that I've worked with, and I'm going to say what I want you to do is to create a new version of this that's completely unique, that is unique to me, and is based off a different topic. Let's see what we can do. Chat, I want you to create a new case study for me. Here is an example of the length of case study and example of the length and all of the unique data that I want to include. The data doesn't have to be, doesn't have to be from a real company. Doesn't have to be from a real company. But make sure that what you create is unique, realistic, and understandable for the reader. This case needs to be challenging and should. So you think of the wording should incorporate, will incorporate, must incorporate. You're basically directing chat with what level of importance you're putting on the next thing. So I'm going to say must incorporate it must incorporate, and I'm going to choose, it must incorporate some of the, I'm going to say this, must incorporate some of the criteria that was listed in the data I submitted already. And we'll see what chat does. We'll see how that works. For example, critical thinking and problem solving skills. So that's good enough. So now I'm going to take a case, and this is important. I'm not copying the case. ChatGPT is not going to copy this case. It's going to take this as a reference. So think, if you have information to communicate with ChatGPT, if you have examples to show, if you have value that way, that is one of the best ways to get ChatGPT to give you what you're looking for. Because what's going to happen is chat will, when you do it correctly, this is good, I got to figure this out here. Chat, the more you can give it examples of what you're looking for, the better it is. So let's see what happened. I didn't expect this, and we'll see what happens. Says, I'm sorry, but as a language model, I can provide information and guidance on how to create a case study, but I cannot create a case study on my own. Yes, it can. We just have to think how to produce that. However, I can offer some tips on how to create a case study. So let's do this. I'm going to take the case study again. I'm going to paste this in. Say, can you modify this case study for me with a new company? And we'll see what happens. So what I'm trying to do is find out, what does ChatGPT need? Sure, what company would you like to use as an example? What would be a good company? We'll just call it, what would be a good company? Because really, you could choose any company you wanted, right? So let's just say BMW. Now, BMW is a car brand under a large subsidiary of companies, but BMW is, so there you go. So let's see what's happening here. So what ChatGPT did. So I took a case study about Bose, and basically there's real data. It's a real company, a real case study. And basically I said, hey, I want to modify this to fit BMW. So BMW, the German multi-corporation, is known for producing luxury vehicles and motorcycles. It was founded in 1916. So I didn't say that. I didn't actually get that. That is already established, not in this case study, because it's not about BMW. So that's actually really good. Now, one of the important things, and I don't know if BMW was founded or if it was connected to that, so I would fact check this. But if you're looking for the DNA of a case study, the value in having students have data and critically think, the more real it is as a real company, the better it is. But the context of giving them a scenario and having them problem solve and think and critical think is the whole point behind this. The value of having a real company is great, but I want them to take a scenario and to show me they can think, to show me their understanding, to show me the skills they're learning. So at the very least, though, ChatGPT created a case study called BMW Driving Innovation Through Design and Engineering. So yes, it's based off the same context of this previous case study, but it's actually about BMW, not about Bose anymore. And yes, it's smaller. So let's just say this. Now let's just say we're going to go through a scenario. So for me to actually create a case study, I'm going to go through and read through this and dialogue and make sure everything makes sense and it's accurate, but I want to expand it. So let's actually say I want this to be twice as long. So let's say I need you to expand on this this section. And what I'm trying to do is basically take these two sections here and have ChatGPT expand upon them, meaning grow them, develop them further. And that's what it should do. Now, obviously, it's using its own language. It's using, not its own language, my apology. So this is, it did what I wanted, but didn't do what I wanted. So I'm going to do this. I'm going to say, I'm going to grab this, saying, how many words is this? Because you could actually say this is long enough. So it's 168 words. Said, I want It's 168 words. Seems like more than that. I want this to be 500 words. Please modify it to be that length, approximately. And it should give me more data and insight, and we'll see if it does it. So there you go. So it is making it longer, and what we would need to do is to read through this and also make sure that we haven't even asked chat, well, what's the meaning of this, the context, what questions would be connected to it, what would be the reason for students to answer this, what are kinds of, so we haven't even gone through by reading this yet. So think, when you're doing a case study and you're assessing things, you have a story or a case, and then you got to think, well, what questions would be things I can pull out through this? Well, it did create a case study for us. It did create a scenario. It did focus on BMW as the new company, and it adjusted all the data to fit that. And it doesn't follow the same format as the original case study I put in, but it did give me something that I can absolutely start with and take and modify and fit. So let's do this now. Let's just, for the sake of time and efficiency, let's just take this case study and say, now here is an example of the types of questions and scoring I want. I'm going to take the questions from the original case and just copy this over. Create for me 7 questions that connect to the case on BMW. And you could actually rephrase it. You can actually say, hey, create for me 7 questions from the case, but it's actually doing it. Now it's following the exact structure, or very close exact structure of what I input. And that's great, but not what I want. So I would say, now, so this is important. So I want to give you some context of what we're seeing and how we have to understand what chat's doing. So we created a case study. We modified it. We have not read through it yet. We would need to do our due diligence to read through this to make sure it makes sense. And you can fact check it if you want, and go through that. But it's really creating a scenario to challenge students' critical thinking, okay? We have our case study. We haven't done any research on it yet to double check to make sure, but it's all been written for us. And then I gave an example of past questions for the previous case. Not this BMW one, but a previous case that we used. And what I wanted ChatGPT to do, and it didn't do this. What I wanted, and I didn't explain it well, or I gave it, it shows you its interpretation of my words. I wanted it to take these questions and then create 7 new questions in sort of that structure, but different questions based off my case. And it actually created the same questions or variations of them to fit the case study. So this was my example. What's the value proposition of Bose? Well, it says, what is BMW's value proposition? Yes, these questions fit. These questions it created fit the case it created for us, but that's not what I want. I could use those and modify, but I want to try something different. So I'm going to go a bit of a different route and say, I want 7 new questions that can pull meaningful data and insights, concepts, and critical thinking analysis from the BMW case. So I said I want 7. Now I don't want to follow the format. I want 7 new questions that pull meaningful data, insights, and concepts and critical thinking analysis from the BMW case. And hopefully you're seeing Chat can do pretty much anything you want, but you gotta guide it. So what would make this an even better result would be to say, okay, here's the BMW case that we have now crafted, and here are core concepts in the class or the course that we're teaching. and say, here's the BMW case, here are core concepts and principles in marketing that we're teaching, we're focusing on this. You can say, now take these core concepts and apply and modify the case to fit these concepts. So then you can then have those specific concepts of teaching deliverables and course learning outcomes you want, you can then have them fit the case specifically and have it modify and work. And that's the beauty of understanding. The more data you have, you can give context-wise to ChatGPT, the better the result will be for you. Because we did get a case study, we do have answers, we have a brand new case study actually that we created from scratch, meaning we didn't create it, Chat created it. But basically it's a new case study within business that we can use. And here are the new questions that Chat created for us. So here are 7 questions that can help extract insights and critical thinking from the BMW case. Now we haven't read the case yet, but we at least have a case, and here are questions connected to that case. What are some key factors that have contributed to BMW's success in the automotive industry? How do these factors compare to those of its competitors? So that's a valid question, right? The analysis and thinking through. BMW has invested heavily in electric vehicle technology. What are some of the challenges facing the adoption of electric vehicles in the automotive industry? And now we can also do this because those questions do come from that case. They actually come from, if we look at here, they actually come from this case that ChatGPT created for us. And this case follows a format, a structure of one we put in earlier. So now we've got this new case study, and it talks about BMW has invested tremendously in electric vehicles and introducing those electric vehicles, and the commitment to innovation doesn't stop with electric vehicles. So it makes sense that those questions connect. As an educator, as someone who is trying to find ways to authentically assess my students, I now have a tool that can give me insight, can get me further along, can get me quicker than starting from absolute scratch, and to get me further along to producing content that can help me authentically assess my students. I'm not saying this case study will. I'm not saying this case study is perfect, but I created a case, or ChatGPT created a case study with meaningful questions and insights in a fraction of time. And then it's like, great, I've got one. Now I can take this and modify it and create a whole brand new one with a whole brand new focus and a whole brand new concept. And let's just say within marketing, you want to focus on the 4 Ps. Well, then you can say, here's the case study, and I want a theme to be the components of the importance of the 4 Ps of marketing. And then ChatGPT will modify the case study to fit that. And then hopefully you can see the opportunity, and the potential with this for us as educators. So now we've got these questions, and an important thing too is we can go through and answer this, which would make logical sense. But since we're in the theme and the context of ChatGPT, I'm going to say, now give me the answers for these questions based on the BMW case. Haha, that's interesting. So it's good. So I'm sorry, but as a language model, I do not have access to the BMW case. Yes, you do. I already created it with you. My role is this. So now I'm going to do this. I'm going to go back to this case study because I was referencing this exact case study. So I'm going to go back to this case study, and I'm going to plug this in. I'm going to say, here are the questions. They don't have to be perfect in punctuation, but it would definitely help with punctuation. So I'm going to basically, so here are 7 questions. And now I'm going to say, give me the answers to the questions. And we'll see what chat does. So answer number 1, some of the factors would be, okay, so here are the answers to those questions based off this case study that ChatGPT has created, and the questions it's created, and now the answers for said questions. Are they perfect? No, but we can at least go through and get some insights. So some of the key factors that have contributed to BMW's success in the automotive industry include its focus on innovation and design, investment in research and development, commitment to sustainability, safety, and autonomous driving. These factors set BMW apart from its competitors, and so on. So how do I think in the last few things of this long tutorial? I'm sorry. What I would do as an educator is I would go and have the case that Chat made, and I would read through that case. and I say, great, now I've got this case study. I'd read through it and say, here are the questions. How would I answer those questions based off the case study? And then I would say, okay, here are the answers chat gave me based off what it feels, based off what it created, the answers would be, and say, do they make sense? And just as a check and balance and a way to adapt and see if is this accurate or not, or is chat completely out to lunch, pun intended, or is it actually in line with what we're doing? So if you notice here, the last thing I want to focus is chat. I said, hey, well, based off this, give me the answers to the questions. And chat's like, well, I don't have access to the case study. Well, within reason, it shows you the limitations of ChatGPT because it has forgotten the case study that it created. So I just recopied and pasted the case study and said, here's the case study. Here are the questions. Give me the answers to said questions. And then it gave me the answers to those 7 questions based off the case study. So is it perfect? No. Is it an amazing starting point? Absolutely. Is this a way that you can create countless, endless ones for your class? Absolutely. Because once you get a case study and a structure set, you can go through the same process. And remember, I'm describing it and discussing it. But within, I think this is probably less than 20 minutes, we were able to create a new case study that obviously we want to validate and go through new questions, new answers, and we can now have a new case study for our class. And we just created that content. We didn't pay for it. We didn't go to a company to pay it for it. We didn't do that, but it will definitely still have the end result of assessing our students' ability to think critically and apply the concepts in class and to be problem solvers and to be able to prove their knowledge. And this is just a way to think through ways to create content in meaningful, efficient ways we can do that. So hopefully that was helpful and a great tutorial. Regardless, be inspired by this, be a critical thinker when you see this, and don't believe everything. Use it as a starting point and obviously challenge what chat gives you, but it is pretty exciting of what we can create as we go through this process. Thanks for watching, and until the next video, have a good day, guys.